Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn today. Pretty
All right.
exciting. So, welcome to Hopeful Tribe, everybody. I want to introduce Beverly Kyer for those of you who don't know her. I think she's an amazing woman and wrote, actually, are you on your, did you write three books so far? Or,
I'm working on the third.
okay, you're working on the third. Okay.
Mhm.
So, the first one was,
That was a blueprint for self-care.
okay, Blueprint for Self Care. I have that one. The second one was the Surviving Compassion Fatigue, right?
Yeah, help for those who help others. Yeah,
Ah,
for
so
all the
good.
frontline workers and family caregivers. Mhm.
Mm-mm-mm. And tell me again what you're working on your third book. What's that one called?
Actually, I should say I'm working on the third and fourth at the same time. This one
Wow.
is about compassion fatigue in a time of crisis because I really want to address the absolute dismantling and changes in mental, emotional, physical impacts of the COVID and the subsequent variants, what it's done to our lives, massive losses and struggles and adjustments. But I'm doing two things because I was writing. We all are aware of the Great Resignation,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
massive loss of staff in all of those industries that work directly with people, children, women, men, elderly, veterans. Um, the turnover has just been massive. And medical teams, they're leaving. And so I'm writing a handbook as a complement to that book directly to leadership in a time
Oh.
crisis, because how they lead needs to be reimagined, revisioned, this changed differently. You got much of the staff working directly from home. Some of them are working in office or they're doing a hybrid, some days in, some days out. And there's no way in the world you can micromanage that. If people got to manage taking care of a family member, the kids are home, they're not in school, this, that, and the other, the pets, the whatever, the neighbor, you can't be on top of how and when they get the jobs done. And I'm talking to them about setting a benchmark that the work gets done and handed in or sent in, but you don't say what time of day they do it. Everything
Yeah.
has changed. They don't have this structured lifestyle that they had before. So I'm writing that handbook for leadership. A number of them, directors, uh, department heads, executives, staff development leaders have just called in and say, help us. We're losing our staff. We can't save our valued staff. And so I wanted to do that complimentary book, a supplement to the third book, which means
Mm-hmm.
four books now. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. Thank you for all the work you do. And
Thank you.
I've been working on a book myself, and now I really appreciate what it takes to write a book.
Mhm.
And I might need some tips from you later.
You
So
know you got it. You know you got it. Just send me a cup of hot chocolate mocha, and we're in business. I
there
will be
you go.
to help you mentor you through your book. Yeah.
Thank you. Um, so we're here today to do our first live stream about the 3R's. Tell me about the 3R's.
Well, the 3R's are my prescription for everybody. Everybody, whether you're doing professional work with people with traumatic life experiences or not, certainly when you're doing family caregiving or taking care of your own family in this time of crisis. They simply are to learn to release what's inside of you, what's going on inside of you, what's hurting you, distressing you. Second R is to reboot, do some kind of technique or strategy or method. There's a number of them to do to kind of decompress the body and unconstricted and get your breathing going back together and to calm your mind. Calm your mind. And the third aura is called recharge, to put back. All of us expend enormous amount of energies every single day, even when you think you're sleeping, your mind is in overload, and we need to recharge and put back. So therefore, the 3 R's are really designed, in my estimation, to help mitigate, because we're going to be stressed. Stress is part of life, as one of my sisters was saying this morning, is part of the journey. But we want to reduce the effects, the intensity of it every day throughout the day so that you don't slide from just being stressed, but slid into what I call toxic stress syndrome when you're really
Mm,
you're really impacted in a major way that has significant health implications. So we all experience multiple stresses every single day, even getting up in the morning trying to face the day. And you got kids in
Mhm.
the house, you got spouses, your partners in the house, stuff going on, arrangements you got to make, your travel on the way to work and traffic and all of that stuff. And by the time you get there at 9 o'clock, you're already tired. It's just
Mhm.
or 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock or whatever your shift is. And so what people tend to do is to store the stress because you want to keep on moving. We call that our great capacity to cope. And so you stuff it down and keep on. You take on the next thing and the next thing. This has upset you. You put it down so you can focus on the next thing. And this is what we do. We do. And so we need to release it. What the magic word is called regulate. Recognize too much has happened. The day just started. And so you want to regulate your neurophysiology, the whole mind body setup. Uh, like I want to emphasize this throughout the day. And so that's what my 3R's are. That's why that prescription has been important to me in my work with frontline agencies for
Mhm.
a number of years. Yeah. Mhm.
Mhm. Why did you decide this should be a daily prescription?
Uh, Mostly from observation and personal experience. I've been acutely aware of changes in people. Like, you and I work together, say we work in the same facility. And I would notice a change in your behavior, your mood, your emotions, your sense of controlling stuff. That's a little out of characteristic, and I'm one of those people. I'm not going to have a knee jerk reaction because you're getting on my nerves. If that makes any
Mhm.
sense to you, that is not Sue's mode of operations. Too much is going on. You see, so what I'm noticing is I stop and think about what has happened today before you begin to make that shift, what happened yesterday or maybe at the beginning of the week that you did not deal with, you did not
Mm.
address, you did not
Mhm.
process. And so what we're looking at is cumulative piles up of stress that puts people in compounded states. It's a thing on top of thing on top of thing. And you know
Mm.
how COVID was. It hit us in every kind of direction. And
Mhm.
let me add on the political climate too. It hit us in
Oh,
every direction.
yeah.
Come on, come on. And then that puts us in exacerbated states of stress. And it changes so much about us. The traumatic events stored in the body and mind, understand this too. The body never forgets. It gets stored and it stays there. If you think about things that hurt you or injured you, offended or assaulted you in your youth, and
Mhm.
you still remember them, they're still there, and they have a way of surfacing, being triggered easily about something similar that happens. The body, in the way that it remembers, when a stressful situation happens, and I don't care how light it is, it activates the five senses. So the body will always remember what it heard, what it saw, what it felt, even sometimes what it tasted. I can remember a really traumatic situation, and bile is backed up in my mouth and stuff like that. So the five senses are activated, and this is where the body will always remember what it felt
Mhm.
at that time, what it sensed at that time, what it saw at that time, what it heard at that time,
Mm.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And therefore, we walk around in the external environment outside of our homes, in our offices, in our homes, churches, wherever we go, any facility, and something there will trigger the body, the mind, and you will feel something, not necessarily understanding cognitively what you felt, but the body is just triggered. And so there's a shift in you that you probably will not see or notice, but me working close to you or being your friend or being your relative, I will notice. I said, whoa, where'd that come from? That
Mhm.
wasn't even provoked. She just went off, you know.
Yeah.
I was I was I'm always comparing that to how I treated my family in certain circumstances. I was with dying children for 5 years in a pediatrics oncology cancer and
Mhm.
leukemia unit, and I'd come home, a child had suffered and lost their life, and I kind of held them in that transition, that awful transition. And I walk in my door, my children are yawning to me, talking about what's not fair, what we don't have, and I just wanted to strangle them. Does that make sense to you? I they made it. And but I want to say, get away, go upstairs, or let me go upstairs and rest, and then you come and tell me what's going on with you. Give me that kind of thing. But that's a change because on the way home or while before I even left work, I didn't stop and release.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
held it to myself
Mhm.
and I brought it home. And somebody's going to pay for that. Something is going to be different, uncharacteristically different about me. And so my wish is for people not to wait for some magical moment to release, to regulate themselves. You know, we were waiting for the weekend or the next holiday to take time for you. You need to stop that because you have so many stresses in the course of a day just piled up. And I say, and I don't mean any harm with this. Oftentimes people go to vacation. You're so tired. The first 3 days you're there, you're not even on vacation,
Yeah.
and you come back home tired as hell. This because you took all of that with you. So release means decompress the bodies and calm your mind frequently throughout the day so that you could handle the
Yeah.
next set of stressors.
Yeah, when people get really fried at work, when like the burnout is extreme, I
Mhm,
always suggest that they take at least 2 weeks off
mhm.
because often it'll take the whole first week just to decompress
Yeah.
and get down to
Mhm,
normal, you
mhm,
know?
mhm.
Uh, yeah. And also, I wanted to ask you, what other forms of release have worked for you?
For me, on a personal level, there's a number of releases that I do. Well, I'm a praying person, so that's one of my releases. Yet had to. It took me a long time to understand. Don't pray within my head, but to pray out loud, to say what I'm going to say out loud, because my mind and my body needs to hear my own words. There's power in the words. I
Mm,
talk to people. Sometimes it's a spiritual advisor. I have a few friends, and they're rare that are close to me who know how to listen more than they talk. I'm not necessarily coming to you for advice. I may say, Sue, I don't know what the heck's going on. I don't know what to do in this situation, and I want some advice. But sometimes I just want to release. Like I want to cry. I want
mhm,
to scream. I want to cuss. You know, I say, can I say? Because this is right there. My daddy, a black man with First Nation grandparents, as I told you, we were born into a pastoral family. And if anybody knows about church, sometimes you run into some of the meanest people on the planet at church, and they would say things,
mm,
but we always were raised to smile and be polite back. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. But we'd be a little hurt, and it's not just church; it could be a school, it could be anywhere. And sometimes, Daddy, when we were visiting the South, he would just take us out to the woods and say, "Okay, say that name that hurt you and scream." And we would do something he called primal
mm,
screaming, and we scream until we bust out laughing. It's
mm.
just let it go, let it go, let it out, let it out, and that's some of the ways that I release. I'm trying to practice, although I need to be guided in meditation, because when my mind is really overloaded, me meditating is not as effective as it was when I'm handling lesser kinds of stresses. I think I make the distinction between there's everyday stresses. I'm not going to just sit and reword those and reframe those, but the traumas that I face in the course of my work, the loss of life, the horrific
Mhm,
abuses of children in my work, whether I'm working with the law enforcement or medical teams or recovery and rescue teams, I have a little bit more difficulty. It could be age, or I don't know, and so I need somebody to guide me in meditation. And I turn on some of those things in YouTube and listen to
mhm.
those voices and kind of go with it, or have a friend do that with me. I use a lot of artistic things. That's a
Nice.
daily practice of mine. I never shut down for the day without doing some digital art on the computer. Never, ever. I
Oh,
play Spider Solitaire and I race Spider. I could finish a solitaire game in less than 4 minutes. There's no
what?
way. Yeah, I'm bad. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. And it is no way that I could think of negative stuff. It kind of empties, and it just kind of sets me in a different place. So those are really rituals for me to do that kind of thing, to use the creativity. After I've said what I needed to say, I happen to have a best friend that we could just get on the phone and beat up any kind of situation. We love to beat up the political arena and just get that off the chest, and then move on to lighter stuff. But those are just some of my ways.
Mhm.
Mhm,
Mm, 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 mm.
mhm.
What do you think are some of the barriers to people taking action for themselves?
The barriers are really, mm, there are many. I want to begin with culture. Many of us come from a culture that says you kind of keep those woes and problems to yourself and you don't share things outside of your house. But then again, I realized for myself, you didn't even necessarily complain too much to your parents. Culture says when you're whining and when you're showing weakness, it has a lot to do with work ethic.
Mm,
Model. Told you about my dad. I watched him work himself and care for his wife who died early, his daughters he raised by himself, and go to a full-time job and run a business and take care of the church and the community. And that's a work ethic. And as much as I knew he died way too early, his work ethic became my model. So, we kind of pick up what we admire without thinking of the full implications to that. And then
mhm,
there's things like pride. That's a biggie. That's a biggie. So many of us, and that could be a gender thing too, with men and sometimes firstborn daughters or the daughter in the family who's the more parentified one, always taking care of everybody else. Our pride says, don't show people your weakness. Our pride says, don't let people think that you can't show up and you can't deliver at difficult, hard, painful, challenging times, that you cannot handle things. Pride kind of dictates that to you. I remember there was many instances in my line of work before I built this business in 2004, but I was a direct line, frontline worker too. And among the many suicides, I remember that there was a veteran, one of many veterans that I worked with, with post-traumatic stress disorder. He was in the psychiatric facility, and I was the clinician in that place. He committed suicide, and so I went about in automotive mode of taking care of all of the pieces, the notifications, all the documentations, the stuff, the arrangements for the morgue. I was just handling. And in the meantime, I think if I be honest, in the back of my mind, I was realizing that the nurse, the head psychiatrist, some of the other physical therapists and other therapists were kind of observing me going through that process. And I said, I'm not going to let them see that I can't handle this. I think that's what's in the back of my mind. It wasn't to the psychiatrist who was much wiser than me. He came into my office and sat down and he says, I'm not going to ask you how you're doing because you're going to lie to me.
mm,
Yeah. And I just stopped. It froze me for a moment. And he says, I know you're hurting because you was with that man for 4 years every morning. And you'll probably be wondering how you missed that. You didn't see the suicide coming. He was so right. He
mm,
was so right. And I needed him to say that to me so that I could bust out crying, release my grief, if that
mm,
makes sense. But those
mhm,
are some of the barriers, and also how we see other people doing things and handling difficult situations. But we believe it's unsafe for a lot of reasons. It's frowned upon for a lot of reasons, and a lot of our religious teachings uh, ask us not to, be weak and fearful, but to just to push and drive and serve. But I want to say this, with all due respect, you can serve, and we should. We could care for others with great compassion. Yet at the same time, I said yet, I didn't say but. At the same time, we are to take care of ourselves, these temples, concurrently, and take
mhm,
care of other people. Don't get that confused and let that be
mhm,
a barrier to you asking for help.
mhm,
You
mhm,
saying, I can't, I'm having a hard time with this. This knocked the wind out of me. I don't know what I'm doing. I just need a moment here to get myself together. This really, really hurt. This really stung. We need to be able to say that. That is not weakness. As a matter of fact, Sue, that's wisdom.
mhm.
That's wisdom.
Yeah, for sure,
Hmm.
for sure. Mm-mm-mm. What have you seen when people don't take the time to release these things?
Well, here's the problem with it. The way stress operates in the body and manifests in the body. I want to say, I don't minor you think it is because several minor things pile up and it leads to big impacts in yourself. But there's a lot of professional impacts to stress, and the way people show up in their work situation. And yet I want to focus on the personal ones because they spill into the professional ones. You may not
Mhm.
talk about it when you get to work, but it's there, it's on your shoulders and your heart. The impacts are your cognition. That gets all skewed. You know, confusion and spaciness and how you think and all of that stuff gets in trouble. The other one is our emotions. They're seesawing. They're not in a stable place. They're kind of out of control. You can get mad for almost no reason. You could get acutely attacks of sadness. It kind of you ever bust out crying for nothing. It just kind of whoo, like if I call. I'm not big on the phone for this is not my thing. I talk for a living, and every once in a while, I want to call certain people. And I think I'm calling them because I want to check in on them. And so I call and you answer the phone and you say, hello, I hear your voice. And it just bursts, it just erupts. And I don't even know where that came from. So that's
Mhm.
one of the things. Your behaviors change. Your
Mhm.
behaviors change. You shift. You do things you wouldn't typically do. I think part of that is like a rigidity. When the stress, incidentally, the hormone is a chemical.
Mhm.
It changes. You know, my other training I did with you a couple of months ago. It changes the way we think, the way we see, the way we perceive, the way we experience things, and therefore we have behaviors that may be rigid. You kind of like shoot from the hip. You do the same thing in reaction, not response, reaction to something said or something done by somebody else. And it's just the same thing. It ain't never ever worked because you had the same argument over and over again with that relationship. But it is automatic. It's an automatic thing, which means it is a part of your brain that should allow you to be more rational and critical thinking. It's hijacked. It ain't even working. That doesn't mean that you're incompetent or a lesser person. It's just a
Mhm.
chemical reaction of that toxic stress that's piled up and has that part of the brain called the hippocampus so flooded with the
Mhm.
stress hormone that it cannot do what it needs to do. You can't even remember the name of your kids. You know, parents. And I used to get upset with my kids because I had two I gave birth to, one I adopted, and a couple of other people's kids lived in my house, and my sister was disabled, and her kids. I call everybody's name except the child I'm mad at. This that kind of thing is this, and they all look
Yeah.
at me crazy. I didn't do nothing. The other things are our interpersonal relationships. They get so messed up. We get to mess those up because of again how we're feeling, how we're experiencing, how we're perceiving things said and done. I've observed a lot of people have like knee-jerk reactions, and they're getting defensive about something because they heard it wrong, and it's kind of hard to get them off of that track. Or like I said, I could have ruined one of my marriages. I come home so distressed from something that's happened at work that I was not only unfair with my children sometimes, but my poor husband at the time. He's deceased now. But I yelled at that man because he was moving too slow to get the garbage
Mhm.
out. You know, for nothing. And it has nothing to do with him. It was something that happened to work that didn't have a resolution. And I'm just feeling so pent up and that I'm exposed to. So the behavior, the interpersonal thing gets us cues. You feel that people may be judging you. People are perceiving you in a way you wish not to be perceived, being unfair to you. Is it that all of that has to do with that chemical reaction? And then there's the spiritual. When we see so much suffering, unfairness, injustice, the murders, the shootings, the political thing, and all of its massive implications, you say, God, or spirit, or whatever, however your belief system is, how in the world? Why? It makes you doubt. It can make you doubt yourself. Let me put that on myself. The rest of you could own that if you will. Doubt myself, question myself when I was losing so many children, say dying on that cancer unit. And I said, am I doing anything that's worth anything? Is
Mhm.
anything I'm doing even mattering or measuring up? I began to question. I wasn't even as confident about my competence at some
Mhm.
point. So much had piled up on me. So that's another thing. And then there's the physical. Don't minimize the physical. Toxic stress syndrome, all by itself, the pileup of stresses in our bodies that's not addressed, mitigated, and you're not able, you choose not to, or not, don't even know how to regulate, could lead to 9 out of the 10 leading causes of death. I
Mhm.
said time and time again that there's a whole lot of people in the graveyard misdiagnosed.
Mm,
Most of
mhm,
those voices that attack you, they're stress related. They're stressed because, again, the chemical reaction in the body goes into constriction instantly in a stress situation, in a crisis situation, in a traumatic situation, and it stays constricted, waiting for you to do something to unconstrict it. And we just say, I'm going to wait for the next holiday to take some time, and then all every day just pile up, pile up, pile up on you. And see, in the meantime, while that body is constricted, that foster tissue that tightens around the skeletal muscular structure, but it also chokes the capillaries, which carry oxygen rich blood to all of the
mm,
systems and organs in your body, and sickness sets in.
yeah.
Our immune system goes down or leaves altogether, and that's the other piece I want you to understand. So all of those symptoms, we have even get clumsy, walking to the wall. This I own this house since 1999. When I'm too upset and I go to leave this office, somehow the whole door jam moves over and I almost take my shoulder off because I'm too stressed.
Uh,
And anybody, you ever fall up the stairs in your house? I don't fall down the stairs. I live in a two-story house. I fall up the steps when I'm stressed because I need to stop and calm myself, like
mhm.
clear my head, take some breaths before I move about my house so that I could do it right and not bring harm to myself. But that's just some of the explanation of these are the consequences, and they're
Mhm.
massive, massive. Yeah.
Oh, here's another question for you.
Hmm.
What are some of the benefits of saying I'm not okay?
Ooh, you know what? First, I want to commend you, but there's a lot of benefits to it. First of all, there's commonality. I used to run grief workshops and I used to do post tragedy debriefings with people who had horrific things happen on their cases that they were responsible for. And I would always kind of hold most of those in a small group of their staff, their colleagues. As I work with agencies, I don't do too much individual work. And the first thing that is beneficial to them is to hear from the others that they had similar feelings, similar experiences. They too were hurt, devastated, grieved, horrified by that situation. So the commonality to know that you're not the only one that struggles. Therefore, it's not a personal flaw or weakness on your part that it hurts you. People need to hear that. They need to hear that. Also, it's important to be the benefit of being aware of what's happening inside of you, being honest with yourself. It's important to do something. One of the techniques is dual awareness. If you're in any kind of situation, mild or moderate or severe, or when people say be escalating, and you pay attention to the external. How far is this going to go? How bad is this going to go? Can it get physical? They're going to start cussing in a minute. Well, you pay attention to the external. And as soon as you make some judgment that this is not going too far or this is the same old pattern, you immediately pay attention not only to the external, but the internal. What's happening?
Mhm.
You. And I dare say, if you pay attention, you'll notice that your breathing pattern has stopped. You either breathing very, very shallow or you're hyperventilating, that your headness, tightness in here, that your stomach feels really discomfort, that your bowel area feels disturbed. You're breaking out in a little bit of sweat. The body reaction is instantaneous. It doesn't wait for you, Sue. It goes into its effort to try to save your life. But if you pay attention to that, then you could do something to take care of yourself in the same moment. You're trying to figure out if and how you could de-escalate that situation that's doing it. Could be a relationship. We have those relatives that we love, uncles and aunts and sisters and brothers, even your parents, and certainly your children, certainly your children. And they just do some things all the time, like the holiday. We can be coming up on the holidays, and some of us are not that happy about being with the family for the holiday. Let's be real. We a little ambivalence about it because some of us things or say that thing to make you upset. And I'm saying, it's going to happen, so get ready for it. and you make a pre-decision how you're going to respond to it this time. You're not going to react to it. You're not going to fall into that trap or just you. They're going to say that, you're going to say your thing, and they're going to say that, and you're going to say your thing, and you know it's going to blow. So if you
Mhm.
yourself, you let them start, and then you say, okay, Bev, here she goes, here he goes. So breathe, girl. You got this. Breathe. And this is I'm self talking to myself. They don't know that I'm looking dead at them, like I am attentive, but I'm to myself. So
Yeah,
your heart
uh,
is beating up.
the last video I recorded with my fiance was about how to deal with holiday stressors, and family was one of them.
Hmm.
Because I feel like people really lose it around their families.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, they're
Hmm.
the ones that conditioned us, so it totally makes sense. It's
Yeah,
just
and those relationships are important
hard,
to us, and we're trying to make them right, but we don't succeed so much when we argue back.
right?
Like my son said this to me. He's 51. He's been in the same field for many years,
Wow.
and it's important to listen to your children. They can be wiser than you. And so he has said to me, he says, they invited you, mommy, to get upset. The problem is you accepted the invitation when you didn't have to. The only sometimes you just look at them and smile, said, I hear you. I
Yep.
hear you. Just blow the whole thing off, of course. I hear you.
Well,
And
my mom said that's how it's supposed to be, that our kids are supposed to be better than us,
they are, if you
you
raise
know?
them, yeah.
That's evolution, she said.
Mhm. Mhm. And we're supposed to evolve,
Yeah.
instead of trying to be the ones that's always on top. But I've learned so much. Both, even my adoptive daughter, she went into a similar care. She takes care of the elderly at Lutheran's Family Services. And she, sometimes I just listen to her talking to me about how she's been handling those elderly people through this crisis. And it's just a wonder. But the other thing, and I want to say this too, the other benefit of releasing is opening yourself, pushing past the pride and the fear and the self doubt, opening yourself to receive support and help from others.
Mhm.
Is nothing quite like that. Uh, it just does as a relief. It gets things off your chest. It pressures you not walking this journey alone. I used to belong to prayer cells for many, many years. And then for a lot of reasons, illness and loss and life and whatever, we kind of got separated over the years. Notwithstanding, I left that church many years ago, but I very, very recently was invited to join a prayer cell, which I've only been with these wonderful women very, very few months, maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 months at the most. And I'm being in this state of mind. I quickly let them know what I was going through, just because I felt like I could, because it's such caring in the way they talk to each other, talk about each other, to ask for the best for each other. And it has been such a blessing and a relief to me to share. I'm the elder now in my family. I'm the matron. All of my uncles, because I was a late life child, they have passed on. So the nieces and nephews, they look to me. The grandchild looks to me. And that's a blessing that I'm still here, but that's a lonely place.
Mm. Mhm.
And I don't call them and say, "Well, darling, this person or this situation happened," and I don't put that on them. But my sisterhood, the prayer line, I could just say, "You are, I'm kind of lost right now at this moment," and get that feedback. And so as hard as it is to change from the way you were about disclosing and opening your heart and saying what's going on with you, I just really encourage you to work on that, to reverse that and give it. Of course, you got to find the right people to talk to. You can't talk to
Right.
everybody, but I could give you some advice on that too. it's,
Yeah.
it's
No, some people just make it worse, right?
yeah, and you know who they are. Say no
Yeah.
point. My
You'll
my
know them as
my
soon as you
friend
start talking
Gwen.
to them.
Yeah, my friend Gwen said to me, she taught me a good lesson many years ago. She said, divide up all of the people, all of your people in your life, be they relatives, friends, acquaintance, or coworkers, into two categories. She says they're your orchestra people and they're your balcony people. Now think about a theater where the
Yeah.
balcony is and where the orchestra is. She said the balcony people are those people who need you. Matter of fact, they want you to get over whatever's going on with you so you can be available to them. They lean on you, they prevail on you, they push on you, they wait on you. They even argue with you about stuff because you don't see their point of view. And that's not to sever relationships with them, but she said you put them in the balcony because they're a little bit of distance and you kind of place them high and further to the balcony depending on how much demand they put on you. And I make an appointment with myself
Uh-huh.
and I'm going to be available to hear how terrible their day is.
Right.
And they're suffering. Well, they can't do that the minute I get off the line. I'm talking to
Yeah.
some nurses in Idaho, and they had such a death count in that course of the day. And I don't want somebody saying, "Yeah, yeah, well, let me tell you how bad my day is." I don't want that. So they're the balcony people, and you do get to them when you can. I like to leave people when they want to cry about something, a love note when I know they're not home on the message unit and to say I hear you and I'll be with you Sunday and I love you and I do that things like that because I really do care. I'm just not going to be battered. The orchestra people are those people who are up close in person to you, and you do some thinking about that. These people don't need you; they just
Mhm.
simply like being with you.
Mhm.
That's a big difference. And they lift you, and they make you laugh, and they drag you out of the dark place and force you to go into light, fun places and be creative and stuff like that. You make that decision. You need to kind of put those people on a piece of paper. Divided in half, balcony people, orchestra people, and we need to be. I know I could call you to be lifted.
Yeah.
And you're going to choose that day not to say unless I say, Stu, Sue, so what's going on with you? And you might say something, but you're going to hear me, you're going to listen to me, you're going to receive me, and then you're going to support me in that thing. So you're one of my orchestra people, and we all know them if we stop and think about that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I love that. And I think in the last few years, have been really good about continually assessing what I call my friend inventory, right? Like,
We do.
let's see, how do I feel about this group of people right now? Is there anybody that's not feeling good?
Uh-huh.
Is there
Uh,
anybody I want to spend more time with? You know,
yeah.
because I think when I was young, because I've always been very social. You know, I had so many friends, and most of them really needed to be balcony friends. You know,
Uh-huh.
especially given that I was single parenting and going to school and working in community mental health. I really needed to be surrounded by orchestra people. But instead, I often surrounded myself by balcony people, and they just took
Hmm.
all day
Because
long.
they knew they could.
Yeah, and I have a lot to offer. I don't blame them, you know? Like
Hmm.
I'm a really good listener. I feed people whenever they come over.
You
If
lend
they don't
money.
have a place to stay, they can stay. Yeah, whatever, right? So I don't blame them for taking and taking it. I just needed to learn how to be more discerning and figure out who's who. Like who
Hmm.
should I keep in the orchestra, right?
Hmm. That is so important to do because you're drained in your other work,
Yeah,
your other responsibilities. Let me, when I say drain, I don't mean that in a negative sense. We love people, we care for people. That's who we are. And I think
yeah,
a lot of people are like that. But loving people does not make you immune to the stress
yes,
comes with always taking care of it. And another thing that we do is we people gravitate toward people like you because they know that you're going to provide for them. Therefore, I'm saying don't give them up, but just kind of put them in another place. Don't be as available
yeah,
to their constant neediness. That's all I'm saying. Say something, kind of redirect, give some referral or recommendation, and tell them I love you, but I don't have the answers to this right now. Don't go down that rabbit hole with them all the time, and because it doesn't stop.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, I love that we're doing this, and I really hope that we can keep up like the
Oh,
monthly
you
live
got me.
stream to
That's all
get
I'm doing.
people really up to speed on the 3 R's because
Mhm.
there's so many people dealing with burnout right now.
Oh my,
And
Hmm.
I actually was going to ask you after, but I'll ask you in the moment live. Like, is there um, another time on Saturday that might work for you? Because I heard from the therapists of color group that I was conflicting with their meeting.
Oops, don't do it. No, no. I only have I have a commitment from 10:30 to 12, but we could talk before, we could talk afterwards, and I don't care what time because
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
we'll do an early Saturday thing like at 9 or something. I don't
That'd
know.
be fine. That'd be
Um,
fine.
because I think a lot of the people in the therapists of color group would want to come, you know?
Well, you be sure to
Uh,
send this to them when you edit it,
I absolutely
to
will.
that and invite them to come. We could do it also toward the evening as well. I'm very
True,
flexible Saturday.
true, true.
Yeah,
Even though I feel like more people are doing things Saturday nights,
that's true. That's true.
especially the younger ones.
You're right. You're right. You're
So,
right.
get them before they're like off in their day, maybe. But yeah,
Hmm.
I think it's a good thing. I think we should just keep on and help people, get through their burnout and recover because you can recover.
You can recover and you can get a state where you're mostly. I want you to practice that word regulate and write that down because remember that you get dysregulated several times a day. That means that the stresses are outside of your window of tolerance. Now, you could cope and you could keep moving, but it's doing a number on you. So, you want to remind yourself and have your friends remind you to regulate so that you can handle the same stresses. I don't care how intense they are, but within a window of tolerance so that you could always be training your body to calm down. This is what's happening. This is a journey, as my friend would say this morning. We're on. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. Because I'm gonna call Sue and we're gonna have a cup of tea and talk this over.
It's gonna be okay.
We're gonna make it through. We're gonna make. I'm gonna pray about it. It's gonna be all right. And so regulation is something that we are to be ever mindfulness, but it does begin with releasing.
Hmm.
Get it off your chest. Don't let it weigh. Don't let it store. Don't let it be in that Pandora's box that's going to crack
Yeah,
at the time you could least afford it to crack.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh.
Before we go, tell me about this upcoming recovery piece that you're going to be engaging in. I love this that you're going away for. What is it?
Yeah. So here's the helper. I have years of experience with neurophysiology and taking care of frontline workers, and I'm really, really good at that. I'm not so good with taking care of myself. And y'all were on the session the last time I talked. I'm in heart failure. Not borne on so much by the COVID, but the political climate and the loss of life, massive loss of life in the country kind of snuck up on me. And I realized to my surprise that after many months of knowing what to do, that I wasn't doing it for myself. I'll do it for you in a heartbeat. You
Oh,
call, you got, but I wasn't doing it for myself. And so the helper needs help. I'm very honest about that. And so what I did is reached out. A friend recommended a wonderful place for me to go that's medically supervised because I do need help with my health. The monitoring of my health is a full time job. And so this place, which is called True North, is medically supervised. I have 2 medical visits a day, and then all of the other things that I like to call spa treatments. But they're really things like yoga and meditation and walks and fresh air and good water and good eating. Nice healthy food. And I don't do fast. Some people do fast, but I need food with my condition and various classes and really hand holding. They're holding my hands and walking me through recovery, you understand, as opposed to me thinking that I'm going to do everything that I need to do on my own. And so this is the help of getting help for herself.
that's
Which
beautiful.
mean I had to own up. I had to say, I told my doctors, I said, this is not working because I'm not doing the things that you're saying. I'm having a hard time. And I got redirected to get this specialized help. And I'm leaving on the 7th. I'm going to be there for 2 weeks and they expect a discharge. So I'll probably be there for 3 weeks, being, somebody going to be taking care of Beverly Kyer. Yeah.
That's so awesome. And
Hmm.
thank you for taking good care of yourself because we want you around here for a
I'm
long
trying to
time.
stay here. Yeah. I'm trying to stay here. Yeah.
And we got a beautiful comment. I don't know if you can see it on your side. It said, I love this content. Thanks for sharing your wisdom on this topic, Beverly.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I
Yeah.
love to share this. This is all I'm going to do. I stepped down from my company. I got a wonderful president to take over and a wonderful team to keep the work going. But this is kind of me pretending to be retired. And when I say that, because I'm keeping a little bit of an emeritus role just to be in a way background to support them as they take the company forward. But I'm not going to be doing any of the work I did before. But this is what I'm going to be doing: having
Yeah.
conversations with people like you. So my new business is wellness reset conversations with Beverly Kyer. And guess who's the first
Oh,
one on my? You are.
me?
This
Yay!
this is what I'm going to be doing from now on. And yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I'd be
Mhm.
happy to. I love talking with you. You just have so much wisdom and amazing experience to share and I think that as long as you can focus on taking care of yourself the way you focus on taking care of others, you will be here for a long time.
Yes, yes. I kind of know that. I really believe that. Uh, yet the thing is, and I know I'm being repetitive, is to talk, do those 3 R's, release. Next time we get back together, we're going to talk about rebooting, what to do,
Yes.
decompress the body and calm the mind. And then the final one of this series is recharge, how to replenish yourself. So,
Yeah.
but release, release.
Yes, release people, release. We'll see you next month. Take good care. We hope you feel loved and hopeful till we see you again.
Stay safe and well.
Yes.